Welcome back to Sunday Morning Get Up. My name is Cap Lossless, and let's get up. And you really want to know what I need to get up on, and I want everybody to get up on, is understanding protecting your peace. And protecting your peace at all costs. Because I like to ask, what is it worth? What is it worth to protect your peace? It's worth everything. And there's so many different ways you can go about protecting your own peace. And it also comes in levels, almost like tiers. And at first, you gotta essentially lose the ability to protect your peace for you to even understand that you need to protect your peace. And, me hearing that personally, and I even cringe at it now because it's like, damn, that's true. But it sucks that it's true, but it's true. Unless you realize it now before you lose your peace, which you can do that. You can learn from other people's experiences. But yeah, it does hurt hearing and realizing that. And just coming from personal experience, I remember growing up and being a kid and feeling like myself, feeling 100% like myself. And all of a sudden, you sort of just wake up in this dark place where your peace is all gone. And you really don't even understand where you're at the moment. You don't even understand that you lost your peace. It all started from being in yourself, but not being aware of yourself, and then losing that sense of self. So you can have that moment that's very sincere, very true to yourself, where you say, "Hey, I want it back. I want that sense of myself back," which essentially is your happiness. So after you have lost your peace and now you're on this journey of, oh, it's time for me to rediscover my peace. It's time for me to protect this rediscovered peace that I have. And a process of rediscovering your peace is literally about embracing yourself. Like literally you. Not the things that people deem is worthy of you to do based on what they think is worthy. Because there's going to be some things that's just strictly what you want to do. No one's going to understand it. No one's going to like it but you. And just to preference this, the things that you want to do that doesn't cause harm to other people. I know that sounds obvious, but sometimes it needs to be said. The inner child in you, the inner you, where your peace is at, is a happiness and an awareness of yourself to do things that doesn't cause harm to others. So with that being said, there's things that may seem taboo, that may seem like you shouldn't do it because it's not what is deemed worthy of society. But those are, know the differentiation between the two. So protecting your peace. In the first stages of protecting your peace, it may look like isolation. It may look like learning how to get away from certain people. Now, the attachments that we have to people sometimes negate our self-will and our willpower to stand away from them. But remember, protecting your peace is a journey of learning how to protect your peace. And it's not an easy journey. It's a journey of conflict. You gotta understand, we have a lot of attachments to things that don't necessarily allow us to protect our peace. And that's just human nature because we are creatures of habit, which means that we get used to, we like to continue our habits and then we become used to those habits. And becoming used to those habits create an attachment. Now, this doesn't have to be necessarily a good thing for you, obviously, because we are attached to people that do not protect our peace. And it's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just simply we become attached to habits. So even thinking about that in the long principle of it, if you start to learn how to become habitual in protecting your peace, then that becomes your habit. Which is like all the way like toward the finish line type of deal. But yeah, so you may have to remove yourself from situations that you want to step into, like situations that you are used to being into, that you actually get a sort of a kick out of, but in the end of it, you end up losing your peace. And then you got the other side of protecting your peace, and this is after you have went through that isolation stage. Because that isolation stage is not necessary for you to live in that place, but it is necessary for you to start in that place. Because once you start protecting your peace and you can get in the habit of staying away from the people, places, or things that is causing you to lose it, now you get to ground and find a sense of self, a sense of your peace. And you get to resonate with that inner child, that inner happiness of you. And also, you don't have any distractions. You don't have anybody there or anything there to say, hey, you don't supposed to be like this. You don't supposed to be protecting your peace. You can play within, you can be free within yourself. Now, after you have been in that state for a while, you got to step out. You got to step out. Because if you stay in that place, if you stay in that isolation mode, now you start to avoid interacting with the world. You start to avoid being out in the external environment. And you run from every situation that your mind tells you that is going to kill your peace. And if you allow that to go on, you start to build that habit. Remember, we are creatures of habit. So if you stay in isolation for too long, that becomes your new state of being. And now you're running from every situation. Now you're not even experiencing life anymore. Because there are things out here in this world that you do enjoy. And other people do enjoy, but you may not resonate with those other people. But that doesn't mean that you should not get to enjoy it. So that second part of protecting your peace at all costs means when you get that sense of yourself, now you have to fight to sustain that sense of yourself. And every day, even now, whenever I face situations that would cause me to lose my peace, or that I think would cause me to lose my peace, that would want me to go in that isolation mode, I ask myself, am I worth it? Then I just sit there. Then I ask myself again, am I worth it? And I sit there again. And then the third time I ask myself, am I worth it? Now, the entire time, I understand that I am worth going out and holding my peace and remaining myself. But I say it and I question myself to remind myself in the moment that I am worth it. You could even go in a situation and say, I am worth it. I am worthy of stepping out and being myself. Or you can ask a question however it feels to you that resonates the most. And then you go out there and you step out there and you remain yourself in those situations. Now, it may not be the easiest thing to do. So don't think that you have to go 0 to 100 and you got to stay in the situation that whole time. Get your feet wet, dabble in it. Step out a little bit. And once you step out and then you start to feel your peace being just ripped away from you, I had enough for today. And pat yourself on the back and be grateful that you stepped out of there. Now, when it comes to this moment right here, it gets kind of tricky because our mind state, our mental state, our emotions changes our perspective, and our perspective changes the way we view things. So when you step out and you have took the challenge to stand in your peace in the outside world, and it got ripped away from you a little bit, and now you're back in isolation mode. I want you to see this whole process of being in isolation, getting a sense of myself, have a sense of myself, get out of isolation, go into the external world and enjoy myself in this world that I'm a part of, that I have every right to be here in. Going through life, having a situation, losing a piece of your peace, coming back toward that little isolation mode, build that little piece up again that you lost, and build a little bit more, and then go right back out and enjoy yourself in this world again. That cycle right there. Remember that cycle. And remember it in that process. And write this down, replay this part of the video, do whatever you can to remember this, because that is a long process. One rotation of that cycle could last 6 months, could last 3 days, it could last a year. Think about how many different perspectives and thoughts that you have in that time frame. So you gotta remember the cycle. Remember your perspective. This almost goes back into when people say, what is your reason why? Because when they ask you what your reason why is, it's because when you go through life and these situations hit, you kind of lose a sense of yourself. But if you can remind yourself of your reason why, it kind of puts you back on track. So it's like that. So remember the perspective. Sustain your perspective. That's really what it is. And that's really what protecting your peace is realizing your perspective that gives you your peace and sustaining that perspective and then building that perspective. That's why protecting your peace and all of this self-love and self-worth and this journey of discovering yourself, it's about building the foundation of your perspective, your highest perspective. Because we have all different perspectives. Like, let's say you go out in the world and someone stole your peace. What did they really steal? They stole your ability to sustain the perspective of yourself that allows you to be free. Whatever that situation did, whatever that person did, may have caused or sparked up an insecurity, and then boom, my peace is gone. I'm no longer myself. But nonetheless, nothing about you has changed. Just the way that you're thinking. Because we have perspectives and we have thoughts that pop up in our head. So like our brains is receivers and speakers. That's all it is. It takes in information from the environment, whether it is external or internal, reads it, and then it spits out thoughts pertaining to whatever is happening, whatever stimulus is stimulating it. So when it comes to us as consciousness, we are consciously just focusing on the mind and listening to it. A lot of people don't understand that there's a separation there, and they just think that it's one. So they just believe the thoughts that the mind is putting out there. They just believe everything the mind's saying and thinking that it's them, but not understanding that it's just your environment. It's your environment that's talking to you. So going back to when someone's making you lose your peace or making you losing that perspective, have you ever taken yourself and analyzed and was conscious of your mind when you were in two different situations? Let's say you're around someone who just brings you down all the time. Thinking about that person, or even looking at that person, thinking about that person, or being around that person, your mind instantly starts saying things. And then you think about somebody else. Your mind instantly changes, your perspective. Even sometimes your energy will change based on the different situations and places that you are in and people that you are with. But it's all perspective. Literally, everything is perspective. Now, when it comes to your environment and your mind spitting out the thoughts of it, this part of the journey of self-love and self-discovery is clearing some of those thoughts, understanding that they are not you. They are just spitting out information of your environment. And the more you start to solidify that perspective, you start to identify less with it. So now you're no longer what your environment is saying. So if someone is making you lose your peace by bringing you down, and your mind is spitting out and regurgitating what they're saying, now you can understand, like, no, that ain't me. I know myself. I know my peace. This is just how said person views me. And protecting your peace becomes a journey of perspective building and stacking. So like, you know how I just told you about the perspective of you're not your mind and you're not your body. I didn't explain the body part, but that's how the phrase goes. And you can be conscious outside of what your mind is saying. That's a perspective. Then you get a perspective of embracing. This is the perspective that I just explained. And then you get a perspective of embracing yourself, embracing the things that you like outside of anybody else's judgments. And you bring those perspectives together. Then you grab another perspective of remembering the cycle of protecting their peace through isolation, then going out, that cycle. Then you put that at your base level of your perspectives. Now, when you have these different perspectives. And as you go through life, you're going to constantly develop more. Seek new perspectives. Ask for things that can allow you to break your current level of thinking to open your mind to more. And then you get a perspective to, hey, I'm going to embrace this love for myself. I'm going to embrace the quirkiness of myself, the differences of myself, and accept myself, to learn myself. Then you start to blend all of these aspects of you, which are starting to open up yourself more to yourself, giving you more of a sense of yourself. And the more sense of yourself you have, the more strong your perspective is. The more strong your perspective is, the more you can sustain it. And the more you can sustain your perspective, the easier it becomes to protect your peace. Protect your peace at all costs, because protecting your peace is worth everything. Do not judge yourself if you lose yourself. That is part of the journey. How could you ever know yourself if you didn't lose yourself? Be grateful, because that means that you can search for yourself again. And a journey of self-discovery is a beautiful journey. It's a journey full of happiness. Now and then afterwards. I know a lot of people say it's not happiness now because of the shadow work, the getting rid of yourself. But if you change your perspective on the shadow work, it can be a beautiful thing. Not saying easy, but it can be happy. You just have to make a commitment to not being attached to your ego. Be so open and receptive to saying, oh, that's ego right there. That's not me. That's not allowing me to be happy. And understand that true happiness is that's the dub right there. That's the win. Because if you can be true happy at all times, you have protected your peace. Thank you for stopping in at Sunday Morning Get Up. It's been nice. I'm grateful for everybody who listens. These mean a lot to me, just so I can start to articulate my thoughts and allow someone to tap into my mind, and hopefully I can offer a perspective that allows you to free yourself. If you haven't, you can go over to the I've Overview, book your free grounding session. Come chop it up, come learn something about yourself. And if you are in the Beloit area or Wisconsin area, stop in for a free Reiki session at theiveoverview.com. Happy Sunday and enjoy the rest of your day.